You said that Kaepernick is being blackballed.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I'm a little torn about this one because
Understandable.
Obviously what he's done has upset a lot of people, upset a lot of owners. You know, he's shaking up the infrastructure. He's shaking up, he's gotten to the point where, Trump was talking about him on a regular basis. On the other hand, he is not considered a top quarterback.
Right.
When you look at his skill level right now, it's good, but he's not going to go down as one of the greats.
No.
So could you say in a way that, well, yeah, he's not getting a job, but he's also not a star, where it's totally obvious that he should get a job?
No. Well, this is how the NFL works. If you're not a star, if you're not a first-tier player, you don't really get to have an opinion about things. So because he's not what they would consider a first-tier player, he's not allowed to have the opinion that he has. Simple. And if other quarterbacks that were stars came out and said the same thing, they wouldn't get kicked off their team. They wouldn't. And so I think that that's the problem that Kaepernick has, that he's not a first-tier quarterback. He can start on multiple teams in the NFL. He absolutely can. But there are teams that he couldn't start on, and there are teams that he's not needed on. So that's the way that they can always say, oh, we're not blackballing him, nobody needs him. Yeah, you do. There's at least 15 teams he could be a backup on easily.
Okay, so you could be a backup, but
yes.
But just, like, I don't know about football as well as you do at all. But knowing what you know about football, are there any teams where he would be a starting quarterback on?
Yeah. First of all, he could have started in LA for the Rams. He could have started in San Francisco. He could have started in Jacksonville. He could have started in Buffalo. He could have started in New York.
A few teams.
Yeah. I probably
teams.
could name some more if I was high. I haven't smoked any weed yet today, so.
Okay. Well, I mean, regardless of who he plays for moving forward, I think the impact that he's made is monumental.
Yeah. His impact on the culture and the movement, the progression of black people is way more important than anything he could have done on a football field.
No, absolutely. And it's really interesting also because he's a mixed kid that was raised by white parents.
Right.
But I remember I was talking to my son about this, who's really, really big on social issues, and he was kind of explaining to me how a lot of times, like, the mixed kids,
get it the worst.
They feel more strongly about these types of issues because they get to experience both sides of it.
Yeah, they feel it.
You know what I'm saying?
They feel it because they can see, like, if you have mixed parents, you live a white lifestyle. If like for example, I bet him growing up, being around white parents, a lot of things he didn't, have access to. He didn't see a lot of things that a black child growing up in a black household saw. And it has nothing to do with money. It just has to do with the color of your skin. People treat you a certain way when you're black. It's just what it is. And I bet, growing up, and he probably finally, he was getting blacker as he grew up. The hair was getting a little kinkier, skin was getting darker. People are starting to see that he's a big, strong black man. And I bet he was just like, damn, the world is different. When you're a grown up and you're just a black man as opposed to living in a house with a white woman, probably treated differently. And he probably can see both sides of that and be like, this ain't fair. Why when I'm over here in this household, it's like this. When I go over in this household, it's completely different. So I think that he probably saw both sides and thought, like, you know what, this is bullshit.
Right, because your son, is mixed as well.
Right.
Even though it's not 50-50, but it's still, it's still a mix of multiple
right.
things. Do you see, as a black woman, do you see a difference in terms of having a mixed child, in terms of the way people treat him, react to him, and so forth, or is it still too young?
Yeah, he used to come home a lot all the time and ask me what he was. And I would be like, why do you always ask me that? And he's like, because the kids at school are always asking me what I am. And I was like, what do you tell them? He goes, I just tell them I'm Aiden. It's so crazy because my son, he refuses to call himself black. Like I always say, Aiden, you're a black kid. He's like, I'm not black. My skin is brown. He goes, why do they call us black when we're not black? And he has a great point because we're not black. We actually aren't black at all. But, you know, that's just a word. It's a negative word that has been used to demonize black people, because black is always associated with dark and death and evil and, you know, nasty and all that stuff. And so I always tell Aiden that, you know, he knows that he's biracial, he's mixed up with a whole bunch of things, but he is not a race. I tell him that all the time. You're just a person. You're an American. And that's all that you need to tell people. And so he's like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, the whole, like, mind state of, you know, if you're like 1/16 black, you're just
You're black. Yes.
That's an American thing. You
Yes.
go to like Brazil,
Yeah.
people who are brown are called morenos.
Yes.
And people who are dark-skinned, African, are called black. You know, you go to South Africa, you see the same type of thing where they don't just throw you in the black side of the, you know, in the black section because you happen to be very, you know, your hair might be a little kinky or your features might be non-white. But America, yeah, America's really on some different type of racist bullshit.
Yes, I learned that when I was playing ball overseas. I was like, this is so crazy how other countries are like so much more ahead of us than in the race game. You know, like they don't even care about that kind of stuff, a lot of places.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to David Banner. I did an interview with him. We were talking about how, and you know, I never really realized it myself because, you know, I'm not black, but he pointed out that
the problem with black people, and I keep trying to explain this to folks, is that we haven't been out of slavery longer than we were in slavery, and people keep forgetting that. And we've never been reprogrammed. Even the so-called smart black people who went and got conscious, most of them didn't come back and teach.
Correct. Yeah. And we're still slaves today, if you ask me. It's just now they know how to, you know, control it. They make laws to enslave us now. So it's crazy, but yeah.
Yeah.